I know it kind of becomes a standard phrase for me, kind of a buzz phrase, kind of a lazy kind of fallback phrase. But sometimes there are certain shows that your level of enjoyment or non-enjoyment all depends upon the manner of your perspective. It really does. And I do think one of those shows that does fit into that category is Survivor Series 2008. The reason I say that is there was plenty of good wrestling to go around. You had several traditional Survivor Series tag matches. Again, another bonus for those that love the old Survivor Series format to see these multiple traditional Survivor Series tags. There's several good matches. Plenty of so-called star power on the card. There were things to really like about this show. But then on the flip side, you have a shitty casket match. You have a really tasteless, bad fucking storyline involving one of your hottest characters at the time. And you get a main event that results in a very predictable finish that has that ultimate feeling of, it's the same old shit. So really, I think in a lot of ways does kind of depend on your perspective about Survivor Series 2008. And I've always remembered this being one of those shows that kind of had a split reaction. You had certain groups of fans that really liked and enjoyed this show, and certain members of the wrestling media that praised the show very mightily. And on the flip side, you had that segment that really hated this show and thought it was stupid, and certain wrestling media that also pruned it. Some calling it, I believe, worst pay-per-view of 2008. And while I don't know if I would go so far as to say it was the worst pay-per-view of 2008, I will agree that it most certainly was nowhere near the best. And in fact, I definitely don't particularly like this show. Bad as '06, heavens no. Not quite up to snuff compared to '05 and '07 overall. Yeah, I would go so far as to say that. Like I said, one of the positives of the show, though, is the fact that you had 3 traditional Survivor Series tag matches. And I liked that. And the action in these matches was pretty good. Team HBK versus Team JBL. Hell, you had the Team Raw versus Team SmackDown Divas match. You got the Divas involved, and this match was at least slightly better than what you would usually expect out of this type of schmaz type match. And you had Team Orton versus Team Batista and kind of that featured 5-on-5 traditional elimination tag match. I liked how this Survivor Series, in a lot of ways, because of the 3 5-on-5 tag matches, felt a lot more like a traditional Survivor Series than some of the recent shows of previous years. I really liked that. And I liked the people that were involved in these matches in terms of the star power. There was decent star power involved. So this was good. I liked that. And like I said, the action itself in these matches was fairly good. It was. So that I really liked. But then I think about things like Undertaker versus Big Show in a casket match. And I always sit there and I wonder myself, how can you have a bad casket match? How can you sit there and have that match suck? Well, somehow Undertaker and Big Show found a way to really knock it out of the park with this casket match. This was bad. This was brutal. This was the drizzling shit. This just didn't work. It was awkward. It was clumsy. It sucked. And it was right smack dab in the middle of the damn card. You would think this would be a match that had a potential to not suck so bad, and yet it ultimately sucked so very, very, very bad. This was bad. This was really, really bad. Very bad. And again, but a stipulation match that ties into the Survivor Series theme. So again, something that I like. It was just, goddamn it, this was shit. This was terrible. Terrible, just bad. Speaking of terrible, the WWE Championship match. It's a triple threat. And we know my propensity for not particularly liking triple threat matches, especially for titles. Hey, it is what it is. But sometimes they can really work. But here, you get to the WWE Championship match, and it has Vladimir Kozlov involved in the match. Okay. Somebody in that company, whether it be Johnny Ace or Vince or whatever, thought it was a really good idea, of all people, Kozlov, to give him a big fucking monster push in 2008. You know, he needs better competition, and this guy does all this samba bullshit that doesn't get a reaction, just bores the brakes off the fucking people. You know, he might have looked the part in a way, but he couldn't fucking do anything. He sucked. That's just the way it is. He had the personality of paint drying. He was bad. He couldn't really move in terms of the flow of what you need in a wrestling match. Just so many things about him were shitty. And here you are, and you're putting him into a major world title match, one of your big four pay-per-views. Why in the blues to blue fucks would you do this? It's almost as bad as asking Triple H to have to carry Khali in a title match. This is bad. And then the tastelessness of the shit they did with Jeff Hardy. You know, it was cool. They had the surprise kind of Edge coming back, and that's all fine and good. But did they really need to do it at the expense of Jeff Hardy at the way that they did? It was just tacky. It was just dumb. It was just stupid. This match was borderline. This almost kind of felt like it really belonged as a SmackDown main event, not a semi-main event of Survivor Series. You know, to Edge and Triple H's credit, they probably did all they could with having Kozlov involved with the match, and they went there with Edge, putting the title on him because of what they were trying to set up going forward. But, you know, this was just not all that good. It could have been better. But maybe, again, with Kozlov being involved, maybe it just was never going to be that way. And then we get to the main event. Of course, you're in Boston, Massachusetts, which is in the background, or the hometown area, you know, of West Newbury, which is the digs, the old hood of John Cena. And Cena had been out with SummerSlam due to injury, in part stuff that he suffered in the match with Batista, blah, blah, blah. Well, here they come, rushing Cena back into this pay-per-view in Boston, Survivor Series 2008. He's going to take on Jericho for the World Heavyweight Championship. And this is one of these things where you know when it's going to happen, you know how it's going to turn out, so no element of surprise whatsoever, no anticipation whatsoever, no guessing, no wondering, and frankly, no reason to get invested in the match at all. You know, even going back to 2008, you're already seeing this where you know, Cena's coming back. There's no way he's fucking losing this first match back, and it's just dumb. It's just trash. Now, some will say that the match was solid, and surely the match was solid. Is this as good as the one they had a few years before at SummerSlam? Maybe, maybe not. You know, again, it kind of depends on your perspective. Was it good? Yes. But like I said, if I sit there and watch over 20 minutes of action and I'm just looking at my watch, waiting for this thing to get over because I know where it's going and I know how it's going to finish, that's not good. You know, sometimes I've said before that you don't always want to be predictable, but just because you're predictable, that doesn't make it necessarily a bad thing. Well, in this case, it kind of does. Because when it's the main event of one of your big four pay-per-views, and you already know what street they're jumping down, right from Jump Street, if you will, before you've even watched and before you've even seen anything, it doesn't give you a reason to get excited. It doesn't give you a reason to get hooked. It doesn't give you a reason to even, frankly, want to watch it. So again, when I think of Survivor Series 2008, I think about a show that on the surface had some really good things going for it. I mean, there's plenty of star power on this show, especially going back to 2008. This was still a pretty deep talent roster. It wasn't Hogan and Attitude Era deep, but you look at that roster of 2008 and compare it to what we've got now, heading into Survivor Series 2014, and tell me which talent roster you'd rather fucking have. Exactly. You know, you had a really nice talent roster. You had on this card 3 traditional Survivor Series matches. There were things to like. But then, brutally bad casket matches. You know, even Orton going over on Batista. Ugh. You know, the never-ending love fest with Orton, especially as you were getting him ready for the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 25 and all this other bullshit. You know, you've got Kozlov in a WWE title match. You do the tacky, dumb, crappy shit with Hardy. You bring Edge back. Oh, there goes the dog barking. She says that's how bad it is. And then you've got Cena predictably coming back to take the belt off of Jericho in the main event. You know, this is just one of those shows that really leaves me with a blase kind of disappointed feel. It's not the best, but it's most certainly not the worst either. But I look at it and I say, this is one of these shows that just is kind of one you can pass on. I'm just being honest with you. Like I said, it's not brutally bad like 2006, but I don't think it's as good as '05 or '07 either. Just it was a show that had so much going for it on the surface, and I just think it underdelivered and it ultimately underwhelmed and disappointed. That's kind of the way I look at Survivor Series 2008.